Hello everyone, my name is Rick Bedeau. I am the founder and principal engineer at Steam Factory. Steam Factory is a boutique engineering, design, and manufacturing company that works primarily with early stage startups and anyone looking to develop new products. As a result, we see all kinds of businesses out there and all kinds of data, all kinds of files, etc. As a result of that, and all the various headaches that deal with customers who name their files all sorts of things, and trying to manage all that in our system, I created a lightweight PLM system that I call Forge PLM. By lightweight, I mean it is free. You can get this off of GitHub and set it up and run it no charge. There are commercial PLM systems out there that are much more robust, do a lot more, but I needed this for a very specific reason, and that was to manage the chaos that we see with stuff like this over here that you see in the screen capture. So some of these file names are pretty crazy. If you work with customers, you know what I'm talking about. They'll name things version V2, whatever, final copy, whatever. And this just causes a lot of chaos when we're trying to get things done for our customers. I like to keep things nice and organized, and that's what Forge PLM is for. If you don't know what a PLM system is, PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management, and it usually encompasses things like ECOs or engineering change orders, file naming conventions, version control, all that good stuff. And I'll get into how I do that with Forge PLM. Forge PLM is based on three different components. There is the tray icon, which is the runtime version, the runtime orchestrator. The runtime has a tool called the admin tool here, and it also communicates with the add-in in SolidWorks. So let's open the admin tool and see what that is. When this comes up, there's a dashboard here. Right now, this is all just eye candy. These are static. And in the future, this will be a place where we can get all the data on our repo, manage things like print jobs, look at our storage, and some other cool stuff. Right now, like I said, this is all static data. Neat little graph there. Over on the left-hand side are the different modules in PRM. There is a CRM, what I'm calling CRM Lite here. By no means a full-featured CRM system, but this is used to start the foundation for file naming and for managing our files. And for that information, we need to have our customer information in here. So I go in here, create customers. You fill out this, and you can see that we've got some customers over here. In fact, there's one right there, Steam Factory. Once you create the customer, project section over here for creating projects. So I will say, let's take a look at Steam Factory, and we've got a project over here. Notice that the naming convention uses a 5-character code for customers. That really helps out when we start doing things like creating projects, and we can see what the customer code is with that project number. And I can see right now I've got to do some UI changes, so we can see that this project code number is actually that right there. So that is how we get to customers and projects through the CRM Lite. Once you have that set up, go into the ECO builder. ECO, engineering change orders, some people call them ECRs, maybe some other term, but basically an engineering change order is the way to encapsulate a project and organize the parts that are being created and utilized in that project. Even if you're just starting out at fresh without any data, you'll want to create an ECO. So it'll be the very first ECO. If I look at Steam Factory here, we do have projects here and parts already created. If I go into the ECO drop down, you can see that I've got an ECO in here. Inside this ECO, we can see that it is in development status right now, and we can add parts here for that. I'm going to go ahead and add a part. Let's call this, I'm going to call it motor bracket. I think that's what I want to call it. We'll come down here to the category. The categories are extensive, and if you download the schema sample data, all of these categories are explained. This is based on my experience in real world development, and some of these may not get used. Most commonly, I use CM, which is custom mechanical. Part number is not determined yet until I hit save or create part, and we'll just call this motor bracket. Actually, it'd say extruder motor bracket. Okay. So I'll create that part. Notice that I've got the rev here. Let me talk about that in just a second. I'll hit create part. When I hit new ECO, you'll see that I've got these rev families here. Again, this is specific to the way I like to work. Basically, there are 3 phases when I work with customers. They're either in the initial kind of development phase, or they're in some sort of validation phase where we're creating prototypes and testing things, or they're in a production phase where parts are actually in production. And typically we don't want to create a lot of ECOs there, but we may create a bunch of different ECOs down at this level while we're iterating. And you create a title and description for those. Again, every ECO state when you create it is going to be in a development state. Okay, so we've got parts in here. If I needed to change something, I can go into part management here. Let's sort, let's do this here. And let's say, if I wanted to say back, motor bracket left or something like that, I can type it in here and save those changes. Okay. So we've created some parts. We've got our ECO already set up. We've got our customer set up. Let's go ahead and fire up SolidWorks. That's not SolidWorks. There we go. Fire up SolidWorks. So you want to do this in this order at the moment. In other words, you want to make sure that you have all your data set up before you open SolidWorks. The add-in will not capture any data that you create afterwards. We'll, in the future, have a refresh capability with that. Maybe once you click on this, it refreshes. But if I come in here and look at Steam Factory, for example, and the project is Ultimate 2Z, and then the ECO, which is this 00059, you can see that I've got my extruder motor bracket in here. I'm going to pull up an assembly of a 3D printer. This is the Ultimate 2Z 3D printer that I designed several years ago for the educational market. It is a kit, and it is unique in that most of the structure is 3D printed. So this was a really great tool for classes. I think we probably have 60 to 80 of these out in the wild. When we did the classes, it's been a while, maybe 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer than that. But it was a lot of fun. Students did a great job with these printers, and they actually work really, really well. So the parts are designed to fit on this build platform. So when you print, when you create your printer, you can build another printer by printing all those parts. So if we take a look at this, let's see, we want this assembly here. You can see some of the part numbers. I've already started doing that for some of the assemblies and other components here. I'm going to pull this out, and here is we'll call this the motor bracket. Let's call this right here. Let's see if that one is, there we go. Belt bracket. Okay, we can go back later and change that if I want to, but this is how this is named at the moment. And what I'm going to do is open that up so it is the current file here. All right, so it's the current file, and I can see over here extruder motor bracket. Again, I can go back and change that later. When I click on this and come over here to this checkbox, what's going to happen is it's going to assign properties to this. If I look at the properties at the moment, there are none assigned here. And what I'm going to also do is come over here. Oh, we already did this. I just wanted to look at the settings for the display here on the tree display. So if you go over to tree display, component name and properties, turn that on, make sure it's component name, set this to component description. I usually keep all this other stuff off. That way what I see here is I'll see the part number, which will change here once I save it, and then the description. So I'm going to go over here and hit this checkbox. Now this is telling me that because I am in PDM, that I haven't checked this out. So what I'm going to do, I don't have to do this. I just want to get rid of this dialog box. So I'm going to cancel this right now, and we'll close that. And let's go ahead and check it out because I am using PDM. And if you're not using PDM, you should. Every version of SolidWorks, SolidWorks Standard, not the 3D Experience, comes with a license of PDM Standard. PDM Standard can do a lot, but it can't do any sort of API integration. You need to have the Pro version for that, or Enterprise, or whatever it's called. All right, so I've checked this out of PDM, and I'm going to go ahead and check this to add it. Now, so I'm going to click this here to check it out, and you'll see a dialog pop up with some information here to save to the vault. This is the vault that it's going to save it in. I've got a project folder in here. If that project folder was not in my directory, it would create that for me, but that's already here. So I'm going to hit save to vault. And now you'll see that the part number updates. Here is the property information. Notice a couple things here in the property card that can kind of trip you up. This is going to be applied to the part at the entire part level. This default tab is not getting populated. This is something in PDM that I have to switch. I don't remember exactly why this default one doesn't work, but anyway, it could be something to do with the way the card is designed in PDM. Want to make sure that we have that one selected. Say OK. And now what you'll see is if I look in my properties here, you can see that I've got all of my PLM properties listed. And if I look at my PDM card, data card for PDM, notice it defaults to the default tab, not where I want to be. Click here, I can see that has all my data. So it's got the number, including the category code here, as well as the revision and the ECO that's attached to. So now all of that stuff is getting tracked inside PDM as well as inside Forge PLM. And I'm going to save this and check it in. Let's go ahead and check it in, and we'll just say that this is all right. So when I go back to my assembly here, you will see that has been updated with the correct file name and so on. That is just standard SolidWorks functionality that we're all familiar with. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, just using the add-in here. accessing that data. All of that stuff flows through the custom properties, and that in turn flows through to PDM. When I go to make a drawing out of this, all that data will flow into my template, and all of that stuff is orchestrated and controlled via the runtime here, and this UI is used to manage the data. So again, meant to be very lightweight, meant to handle a lot of the tedious and error-prone attempts at other file naming conventions and file management. That's kind of the point of this. Now there's a piece of this that we're working to develop in the future, and that is currently a system for exporting files. So for example, if I want to export these two files here and I want to send them as STLs, I can do that. If I want to include PDM versions of those, if I want to make drafts of those, I can do that here. I can zip those up into an archive, and once I hit generate files, that will generate these files as STLs with all the information, including the ECO and all the other metadata that is stored in properties. This is an older version of that tool that we will be adding to Forge PLM soon, so stay tuned. But right now, if you wanted to download from the repo on GitHub, and I can actually show that here. Let's do this and go to GitHub and Forge PLM. So you want to go to GitHub, Steam Factory, Forge PLM, and you can download the code here, do with it what you want, do a clone of this and make your changes. This is updating frequently, so if you download it and install it and you have a problem, let me know. Most likely we will be updating any issues that we encounter in kind of real time. So that is Forge PLM. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, definitely respond here. You can also send or check out our website at steam-factory.com and reach us through that. Hope you found this hope you found this useful and informative. Have a great day.